Hello everybody, I'm here at Feria Latina's Storytelling Corner and I'm going to be reading you a story from the Andes. It's a folk story, many years old. My name's Francisco and I hope you enjoy it. The story is called El Pobre y el Rico, Rich and Poor. In a little village perched on the mountain slopes lived a man called Watiakuri. He was dressed in rags and ate only charred meat and the berries he could find in the forest. This was strange, for he was the son of the god Pariacaca. Nearby, at Anchicocha, lived a very rich Indian. His house was roofed over with brightly colored feathers, and his walls were covered with fine cloth. He had a great many llamas, which were the envy of all his neighbors. People came from far away to pay their respects to him and to ask his advice, for they thought he was a god. He was known simply as the rich man. One day, the rich man fell ill. He promised a fortune to anyone who could help him, but nothing did him any good. People began to doubt that he was a god, and some even began to curse him. At this time, poor Watiakuri was returning from a long journey. On his way, he met a fox which said to him, "I come from Anchicocha, where there is a very rich, very sick man. I know that his wife caused this illness because she is secretly in love with another man. And this has brought a curse on him. 2 snakes live on the roof of his house waiting for him to die so that they can eat him. Under a flat stone in front of the door, a 2-headed toad is also waiting for his death." Watiakuri had already heard about the rich man who claimed to be a god. He decided to teach him a lesson. When he got to the village, he pretended to know nothing and asked the youngest of the rich man's daughter if there were not a sick person at her home. The girl Champinaca replied, "Yes, sir, it is my father." Champinaca was so beautiful that Watiakuri said, "If you will marry me, I promise that I will save him." He was so dirty and poor that she hesitated, but she loved her father so much that she accepted Watiakuri and ran home to tell what had happened to her. The sick man was so desperate that he would try anything. "You are the victim of an evil curse," said Watiakuri, "and your wife is responsible. Do you know that 2 enormous snakes are waiting for you to die so they can eat you? Do you know that there is a 2-headed toad under the flat stone by the door, waiting to do the same? If you want to regain your health, you must kill all 3. Then you will be better. But when you're completely cured, you must thank me by worshipping my father, Pariacaca. He is a true god. You must bow down to him to show everyone that you're an impostor." The sick man and his friends could not believe their ears. But they went out of the house and found the snakes and the 2-headed toad, just as Watiakuri had predicted. The rich man began to feel better as soon as he had killed the animals. But Champinaca's rich brother-in-law was furious. He could not bear poor Watiakuri to be treated just the same as himself. One day, he went to him and challenged him to a series of contests. Watiakuri accepted the challenge at once. "Until tomorrow," he cried. Then he went to Condorcoto to talk to his father. Pariacaca was sitting in one of the 5 sacred eggs from which, at the beginning of the world, he had been born in 5 separate bodies. He listened carefully to his son and told him to come to see him between each trial. Watiakuri felt very confident as he went back to Anchicocha, and when his brother-in-law told him that the first test would be to see who could drink and dance the longest, he agreed cheerfully. Off he ran to see his father, who gave him a pitcher of chicha spear, and a magic flute. Thanks to these, Watiakure won the contest. His brother-in-law angrily issued another challenge. "We will see who can produce the most magnificent dress," he said. "You won't be able to match me tomorrow." Watiakure hurried to see his father, who gave him a poncho made of snow. It was so beautiful that no one noticed the cloak of multicolored feathers that his brother-in-law was wearing. For the third test, the rivals were to come to the village square dressed in the skin of a puma. The wearer of the more beautiful skin would be the champion. Again, Watiakure ran to see his father, who said, "Go to the spring at the top of the mountain. There you will find a magnificent red puma skin, you will win the contest." When Watiakure arrived in the square, clothed in the extraordinary skin, a rainbow circled his head like a crown. The watching Indians were stunned. His furious brother-in-law produced another test, which he felt sure of winning. "Now," he said, we'll have one last contest. Whoever wins this will have won the whole competition. We must each build a house in a single day and night. Whoever builds the better house will be the champion. Start at once. There is no time for you to leave the village before we begin." Helped by his many servants, the rich brother-in-law quickly built a splendid house. Poor Watiakure, with only his wife to help him, had only built the foundations when night fell. The watching Indians went off to bed. They had no doubts about the winner. But just as they were entering the houses, they heard an extraordinary noise. It was made by thousands of birds, snakes, and wild llamas, carrying stones, branches, shells, and wool to help Watiakure. So by dawn, work was finished, and the Indians had never seen such a beautiful and splendidly decorated house. Watiakure had had enough. He said to his brother-in-law, "I have done all that you have told me. Now do as I say. We're going to dance in the village square." The brother-in-law arrived first as usual and began to dance. Suddenly, Watiakure rushed in and gave a cry which froze the blood of everyone who heard it. The brother-in-law raced off in panic, and just as he reached the wood which surrounded the village, he turned into a deer. Then Watiakure caused the river to flood and sweep away the rich man's house and everyone in it. All that remained was the flat stone beneath which the two-headed toad had hidden. And to this day, on this, the Indians place their offerings to the god Paliakaka, who watches over them.